They can't hear us.
Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to the inaugural edition of the IWFI series, put together by the Institute for Work and Family Integration, a research, educational, and advocacy organization in the front line of work and family issues, recognized as a distinguished family organization in Africa by the Secretary General of the United Nations in 2018 report. The Institute for the past decade have advocated for family responsible policies in companies. Voila, here we are with this pandemic, with its novel opportunities as well as challenges. Living together in this period of the lockdown is a unique opportunity to grow in marital love and friendship. The marriage relationship team at the Institute has been studying trends and coping strategies in marriages during this COVID-19 lockdown, working from home with all the stress and anxieties. In this webinar series, we shall examine some of these new challenges and opportunities open to couples to grow in happiness as the country fights the coronavirus pandemic. In today's edition, we shall cover stress and anxiety, while next week we shall be looking at things of communication, speaking to be heard, productivity at work when you're working from home with your children, schooling from home, how to negotiate with the family. With me in the studio this evening are the founder and co-founder of the Institute for Work and Family Integration, Sir Charles and Mrs. Gloria Osezwa, certified marriage therapists who have been helping couples over the past decade to grow in happiness. Sir Charles Osezwa and Mrs. Gloria Osezwa, do you want to say hi to our distinguished ladies and gentlemen?
Sure. Hello, everyone.
Hi, hello.
Great. So I've received all your expectations and we have incorporated this into the design of this webinar. So we set the ground rules now. For your questions, post them in the Q&A section. You will find it at the bottom of the screen. I am Charles Aigbonan, the Executive Secretary of the Institute. I shall be your host. So I'd like to begin with you, Charles Osezwa. How can you identify causes and also profile possible mitigations of tensions in marriages in this period of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you very much, Charles. I think it's indeed a privilege to have this opportunity to talk to our participants. I mean, what has happened to us here is that in a space of a very short period of time, we had a significant change to our way of life. Let me put it in perspective, Charles, so you can appreciate if I understand your question correctly. First and foremost, we are control freaks. We plan our lives and we want to be in charge. Now, what did COVID-19 do? It essentially changed the way our world was, which was ordered, where we had control, and created what I'll call a FUSA world. Fear, uncertainty, stress, and anxiety enveloped us in the FUSA world. Every day we sit down in our homes and watch our television, we hear of thousands of people dying of the coronavirus. And we start to wonder and worry. If you like, fear envelops us. Fear of our health, for the health of our loved ones, and relatives and friends. The uncertainty, as you sit down, you hear, Nigeria, of course, we thought we were shielded because of the high temperature around us. But all of a sudden, here's COVID-19. We thought it was a foreign thing, but it wasn't. So we are fighting coronavirus and the oil prices collapse. So double whammy. We see on TV millions of people filing for unemployment benefit in the US. And in Nigeria, we see a lot of people on the streets. So we start to wonder about our jobs. The fear, the uncertainty of employment suddenly hit home. Do I still have a job? We hear of corporate entity reducing salaries. Is my salary going to be reduced? Then government say, oh, 60%. Am I going to continue to work from home? That is part of the uncertainty. Of course, now we are all in our homes, locked down, husband and wife with children. And sometimes we step on each other. There's irritation. And irritation has its own stress. As we see each other's faults, we judge and we complain and we find ourselves stressed out, just being together. What else? Of course, we are in the house spending money. We have to eat, bills have to be paid. So, financial anxiety. So, just from identification perspective, there are 4 categories of anxiety that have enveloped us in what I call the FUSA world. The fear of health, our own and our relatives and friends. The uncertainty of employment. The concern or the stress of being together. And of course, the anxiety over our finances. Now, but let's take it for what it is. FUSA is an emotion. It's, I said, a ball of emotion that has enveloped us. And what we find in FUSA is that emotions are constantly running high. Question I think you asked me was, what do you do? Well, you exercise your freedom. Let me put it this way. Emotions are neither good nor bad. It's what we do with them that determine what they are. Now, because we are in a FUSA environment, does not mean we have lost our freedom to decide, to choose what we do. COVID-19 cannot take our freedom away. Nobody can indeed. How we behave or how we respond to situations in our homes, in our relationships, it's purely left to us. It's the last thing we have standing. So we exercise our options, either to be enslaved by our emotions and act like animals and create mayhem in our homes, or indeed act like mature adults and take control of our emotions, our temperaments and moods, and come up with a plan of actions to be in control again. At the end of it all, that is our freedom to choose, to decide. So that if the emotion rushes at us, we must stop, reflect before we say anything or act. This is, let me put it this way. Just when adversity hits home, it is to define us for who we are, to bring out the best in us as mature adults, as husband and wife. And I think it's important, like we say in the marriage relationships program, your emotion is to bring out the better version of you. In doing so, you are going to be tested in the various circumstances on how you respond till it becomes a habit to respond well. So, in a nutshell, we have been tested, and when it hits, you go back, you and your spouse should sit down and have a dialogue. A dialogue to know how this FUSA environment is impacting your union. Remember always, you are a squad, a tag team. A squad in the military is the smallest unit of an armed forces. You are a squad on a mission for love, for happiness. That should be your objective. Don't forget. So we have to be proactive. That's the point I was trying to make. In the course, we emphasize to be proactive. Remember to be proactive. You reflect before you act. Remember your vision and the pursuit of happiness. And if you stay on that course, you deal with the issues and you come with a plan of activity and you create a virtual space between you and your spouse. I tell you what we did in my family. When COVID-19 quarantine doors were locked down, my wife and I sat down. We even got my daughter, who is in university, to say, okay, we are home together now. Let's create order. We create a virtual space between us. So you know when you do what, and the other one knows when they do what, and so we don't aggravate, at least we minimize the aggravation. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you very much, Charles. Now, it's interesting to note that from the situation of wives asking their husbands to come home early and husbands doing their best to be at home, we are now in a situation in which both spouses are locked together in the same space at the same time. Mrs. Gloria Osezwa, how can they manage the daily irritation that comes from being in the same space and the stress that comes with it in their relationship during this period of the COVID-19 lockdown? Unmute your mic so that we can hear you, Gloria. Lovely. Lovely. Good.
Thank you very much, Charles. I like to start on a positive note. Being together is always a good thing. And in spite of the irritations that come, during this period of pandemic lockdown, you still find that, some married couples are in paradise. They're in paradise, having more time to spend together like they never did before, with their regular schedule. The relationship, survey carried out on married couples during this period by the Knox show that 56% of them agree that their relationship has been strengthened, which is a good thing. It doesn't mean that it doesn't cause stress or struggle, but it is a good thing. We still have the other 44%, on the other hand, that are looking forward to, they can't wait for this lockdown to be lifted so they can get back to their world. So what are these irritations? Working from home in the same space and running into each other. When you see yourself too many times, often and getting each other's way can be quite, annoying. And again, because they are working from home, especially with us in Nigeria, spotty Wi-Fi, little things like that, they can really upset you. They are not sure of meeting their deadline. On top of all that, you have the children to care for, chores to deal with, no me time, just to mention a few. So what is the result? You find that they start bickering at each other, get on each other's nerves. But this does not solve any problem. It doesn't help. So what do? The first thing, to engage in is reaffirm to each other that, we are in this together and we are going to get through it, supportive of each other. So like that, you are building solidarity with each other. And because of this, you can now invite your spouse to come and sit with you, to put a schedule together, that takes care of all the activities that each day is going to bring, to the house. That is befitting, from wake up time to breakfast time, family time, study time, work time, homework time, time to go to bed. So everything is put in perspective. So during those change of activity, it refreshes the mind and the individuals that yes, it's not all bad. So I'm changing from work now to family, family time, to play with my children or to do homework with them. Then I like to also stress the fact, since couples are now together during this period, it's time to focus on your communication skills. Instead of sarcasm, the first thing that comes to mind, you throw it out there. No, let's reflect a little bit. And instead of saying, you know what, make yourself useful. You can't just be lying around like a bum. No, you don't have to say that. You can say, I will really appreciate some help with putting, things away, or with putting Junior to bed and all that. Say kind things to each other. No command, no instructions, no directive, because these are the things that cause the irritation we talk about, and it can even grow into resentment if we don't watch out, for them. We have to make effort to always say those nice things, to say, positive things to each other, and be more aware of your spouse's need and step up to help. And when this help is given, it should be received with gratitude. It should be received with gratitude. And, don't take yourself too seriously, because you are in this, in this sweet melody together. You have to make sure that you create an environment that help you to enjoy each other's company and create an environment for your children to thrive. Avoid silent treatment during this period. It has never been a good way of, communication, neither is it now, especially when you are in the same space. If you have any issues, deal with it immediately and move on so you can enjoy your life. And in conclusion, you have to make sure whatever you want to say, stop and think, what I'm going to say right now, does it help my situation? If the answer is no, don't say it. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you very much, Gloria, for those life hacks. I will move on to Charles now. Charles, as a huge employer of labor, how can employers and employees manage employment uncertainties, worries, and anxieties, which you talked about at the beginning of this program?
Thank you, Charles. You can see I'm laughing. I mean, let me try to address your question. First, I should say that worry is with us. Anxiety is with us. They're always going to be here, COVID-19 or not. As I said at the beginning, we are control freaks. But when we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, we naturally worry. Worrying is part of our natural effort to cope with uncertainty. So, just like I was talking about emotions are neither bad nor good. It's what we do with them that define what they are. I think it's important for us to put that in perspective, to remember that often. So now, why worry? I will say it's a reaction to uncertainty. But let me try to address your question in more specific ways. Your question really is about what should the employer do, and what should the employees do? All of us, what should we do? Well, starting out really from the employer's perspective, if I start with that, since you emphasize that a lot, with the uncertainty in our environment, I should start, or all the employers start, scenario planning. It's about forecasting. We know what is likely, or with the oil industry, the oil price collapse, how does it affect my business? And if I go, will my business still be there? How many people can need support? And so on and so forth. All these changes by government in space, social distancing and all the rest, how does it impact me? I go through a scenario planning. From my scenario planning, I should share with my staff. I think as an employer, really my first and foremost responsibility today is to minimize the anxiety with my staff. I should be open to them, and I will talk to them and let them know how FUSA has impacted our business and our struggle to ensure we remain a viable entity. They should be carried along. Now, when I finish my analysis, I should share with them how it impacts them individually. This is not the first time we're having adversity, but it's always important to let your staff know, even if it's the worst possibility, at the individual level, what are those possibilities? The possibilities are, the worst case is you lose your job, or you get a salary reduction, or maybe you are very fortunate, none of that happens to you. Maybe you have to work from home. It means you have to go into deal with the stress we talked about. The kids are not in school, they are all learning online. Maybe madam is also working, outside the office. Yes, so you are in that environment still. Those are the possibilities for you as an employee. Now, what I like to say though, is that what is good, the principles that work for business also work for the family. We need to also start a scenario planning in our home with all the pandemic and everything that's happened. Let's look at those three options and what we should do as a family to respond. So husband and wife should get together. If the children are around, go into a situation room and have a meeting, a dialogue. Look at those things that you worry about and start to define action plans. If they do happen, rank them as best as you know. And I think it's important for us to appreciate again, when we talk about worries, stress, and anxiety, that again, these are indicators. It's how we respond to them. They are like those indicators in our car dashboards. I take it like this. If you are traveling in a car and the temperature gauge is showing you on the dashboard that your engine is heating up, what do? You try to go to drive and the engine may just knock and your journey is frustrated. You have the alternative is to stop the next petrol station, check your oil and water, and you can continue your journey happily ever after. That is the question of worrying I want to address again, Charles. So anxieties and our worry and the stresses are triggers. If we stay on them worrying for a long time, it will be like what happened to the car. Worries can create a lot of emotional and physical health challenges for us. I mean, some talk about headaches, sleepless nights that they can't sleep. Some become jumpy. We find that we see things from a negative perspective. All these have a way of impacting. You start to have what you may call GAD, general anxiety disorder, where we find that our response and reactions start to impact our relatives, our loved ones who live around us, and that creates more complications. But I want to go back and define that worry and emotion aspect of this whole thing. But you've now done your scenario planning. You now know what your response will be. They may never happen, but we worry all the same. But we must minimize how we worry. Now, let's go back. If the worst happens, what do you do? Assuming now you are unemployed. The first thing, of course, is that we grieve. If we lose something that is dear to us, we naturally will grieve. I will not tell you not to grieve, but don't dwell on grieving for too long. The good thing for you is that you already have a plan. Pick up the envelope that says, assuming I'm unemployed. Focus on those things that are within your control. I mean, we now start to look for a job. You can develop, renew your resume. I'm assuming you may have cleaned it up already. Issue your resume. Renew your contacts and start to grow them. Expand your list of contacts. It's an opportunity to sit down. Remember, if you become unemployed, it impacts not just only you, but your family. Because your employment, your work is what defines you. Your employment, I mean, when people see you on the way, oh, what do you do? Who do you work for? These are natural questions people ask. So it's about our life and livelihood. So we sit down with our spouse to talk about it, and together again, fine-tune strategy. Don't sit and brood, oh, I have no job. No. Your search for job becomes develop a schedule. You know when to go out in the morning and when to return. Looking for job. Looking for job becomes a job. Expand your network of friends. Carry your children along because they will be psychologically impacted. So let them know and what you are doing. Still have fun time. Family life has not stopped. And finally, keep your positive energy up. Don't go into the negative. I will say, write down those things you are good at, the successes you have achieved, projects you completed, and those things you've excelled in during your career. Write them out and reflect on them, read them. What it helps is to boost your positive energy, so you can carry on and be able to, with that optimism, I am good, I can do it, I can achieve great heights. Finally, don't give up on sports. Go on walks so you can also clear your head, just like you normally would do when you were working. You still need that energy and get involved in some community activities. Register with an employment agency or some of those agencies where they talk about HRO meetings or these conferences and activities. Network. Go and network. What I find as an employer is that it is not all the vacancies you advertise. As a matter of fact, the more important ones, you just refer to them. And it's through the network that you get to know of opportunity. Charles, there's so much to say in this particular subject, but I think I'll leave it at this point. If there are more questions, we'll take it up in the next round. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charles. Talking about questions, please post your questions in the Q&A section, and also go through the questions in the Q&A. For those you prefer, just vote for those questions to give it some higher rating so that they will gain priority as I start to ask those questions. Before I go into the question and answer sections, and reflecting on all you said about the worries and anxiety, Charles, I see that everything is boiling down to money. So Gloria, how does the issue of finance affect marriage in this period we are in? Gloria, please.
Thank you, Charles. Money matter has never been the easiest, to discuss between married couples. So talk less of now, when you are anticipating that you are going to have less of it. Just like Charles has said, all those unemployment, stand up, stood up, and all those conditions that may come, there's need to have a survivor strategy for the family. And I will say that during this pandemic, more couples are actually taking time to discuss their finance. Yes, we have bills to pay, of course. You have rent to pay if you don't own a home. If you have one, you may have mortgage to pay, fees to pay, recurring expenditure, living expenses, and the height in cost of living now. All that is going to impact the family. So what do? I will focus on the family, those things you have control over, since Charles has already dealt with all those unemployment circumstances. So the first thing to do is to have internal family conference, I like to call it. it is so important because you cannot go it alone and you should not go it alone. Marriage is a joint venture. So that internal, family conference, should be of two levels. The first level is between the spouses for clarity and review of priorities, because you may have had some dreams on things you want to do and how you are living your life. This is a time now to review all that, to drop those that are not so critical and to enlist those ones that are critical. That is like removing the fat and leaving the lean meat. You will still survive and be strong on it. The second level of this internal family conference is between the spouses and the children, because the children have to know what is going down. And the idea and the whole idea is to ensure that they understand what is going on. Because I'm not sure how many homes or how many parents have had time to sit with their children and explain to them what this pandemic means and what is bringing to bear on families and why we have to have a way of surviving and how we have to work together as a family to ensure that we are always above board. So that is very important. And it's also important to talk with them so that when they make some requests and daddy says, our budget cannot take surprises, they will understand. They'll be able to say, okay, Dad, I understand, instead of saying, I get it, which is a negative, reaction that, a child who does not know what's going on usually say. So it is important to talk with them, and there has to be a deliberate, plan, budgeting, budget with what you have, not what you think you will get, what you have, and ensure, you budget with it to stretch and cover the period that you are supposed to, keep living and enjoying and remaining as one big family. So you have to budget, for good use of what you have. And then you have to embark on an adjustment program. When you say adjustment, it's not necessarily to put us down, but to replace things like vacation with staycation. Anyway, who goes where? Because nobody can go anywhere because there's nowhere to go, everybody in their own home. But at least still make being at home more exciting, more interesting, make a life for the family that, that still makes them, to enjoy, being a family. Introducing things like, family at the movies, just us party. And it doesn't matter what you present, what you use, but the fact is family life continues. And we have to learn to manage waste during this period. Manage waste. You can have leftovers and it can be represented, in a different way that gives you the flavor and aroma of a new meal. And everybody will still enjoy it. We shouldn't make it like we have been sent to the gallows because these things are not happening my way. And we have to be more creative. We have to develop some new cuisines. Go into the internet and get, these new cuisines that will give excitement to the family, made by the family, for the family. So nobody is left out, and you don't have to be eating sausage and and whatever it is and bacon for breakfast before you become happy. No, you can replace things like that with yam wedges, with very nice vegetable stew. And because it's been done with so much love, the children will, they will understand and they will enjoy it, and everybody will be happy for it. Now, the goal is to make these adjustments without losing the joy and peace of the family. I like to stress that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gloria. We have really interesting questions here, and I'll be trying to categorize them into finance, anxiety, work, sex, and all that. So I will throw a few at you and see how many we can take for the time we have. I start with this one by Charles, my namesake anyway. Is marriage really a 50-50 contribution? Is there always a dominant spouse in a relationship? That's one question. I would add another one to that. Communication is, as rightly put by Mrs. Gloria, how do you manage a situation where a party is more reserved, which makes communication ineffective? So maybe we start with that. Who takes the first shot, Charles or Gloria?
I'll take the first one.
Okay.
Well, the question was whether marriage is a 50-50, agenda.
Yes.
Right away, I will say no. 50-50 agenda is, contract with the plumber. I pay you, 50 naira, and you fix my faucet. So if you don't, I won't pay you. But in marriage, it doesn't work like that. There's always that overlapping, because you have to be able to keep on keeping on, because some may not be willing to talk at that time, some may be willing to talk at that time, but you have to, it's 80-20. So if you give 80 and you get 30, you are happy. But if you have 50-50 arrangement, it means when you don't get your 50, you are miserable. And 50-50, they don't overlap. So you see them, they don't rock, they rub against each other like iron, and they wear and they move apart. So that's what happens when everything is on scale. I have done this, you must do that. It doesn't work like that. You do because you love. You're on a mission of happiness. And because of that, everything you do is for the happiness of your spouse, because the happiness of your spouse is your happiness. But if you are there to seek yourself, definitely that marriage will have a lot to contend with. So, Charles.
Okay, so Charles, Charles, you want to take the other one?
Okay.
Unmute your mic. And Charles, unmute your mic.
I just did. Are you hearing me now?
Yes, yeah, we are.
Okay, great. Now, question was that how do you communicate in a marriage where your spouse does not like to communicate? Can you rephrase it? Let me get you clearly. Or am I correct?
How do you manage a situation where a party is more reserved, which makes communication ineffective? After that,
I'll say you have. Okay, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I went to add one more to it, but go ahead.
Go ahead. If it's related, we can take it.
It's not.
Okay. When we're talking, we are gifted differently. But with all our gifts, we are beautiful. Your temperament and my temperament can't be the same. Gloria and I talk a lot about, when we go to the marriage relationship program, the weekend one, there's always this thing where we like to, I'll call it a game, but we talk to couples about the fact that if Gloria and I were the same, life would be very boring. Maybe you are the very aggressive one or the talkative one, the fun type, and the other one is more reserved. Yes, that is the combination that makes for a beautiful marriage. So you have there was something ab initio that attracted you to your spouse.
Charles, are you there? Okay.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, good.
Okay. There was something ab initio that attracted you to your spouse. Those are the ingredients you have to make a perfect marriage. I think Gloria made the point about we are in marriage for happiness. It is when you are happy with each other that you can grow together. But what does it mean? Remember, happiness is the fruit of love. When you are in marriage to love, okay, when you say you are in love, you are actually there to seek to do what is good for your partner. maybe it's reserved, but there are other wonderful things that he or she does. And you will find ways, communication is not all about talking. That's why you talk about verbal and non-verbal communications. So it's a temperament. It's neither good nor bad. It's what we do with it. So we communicate with each other. I mean, it's like, let me not go into too many personal stories, but the general point here is this. Your spouse may not be the talkative one, but I'm sure your spouse communicates with you very well when he or she wants to. You know, for those of us who are very loquacious, we think it's what you say. From studies, you'll be amazed that our verbal communication actually accounts for less than 20% of our communication with each other, way less than 20%. And more, what accounts for our communication, about 7% of it, is the non-verbal. So we need to be mindful of the fact that really, so we communicate with each other every day. So you are with your spouse. Think about it for a moment. Suddenly, they don't feel very well, but they didn't tell you, or they're in a bad mood. You will know instantly. So we are always communicating with each other. And I think, so don't feel bad that there's communication going on. It's for us to be more attentive. If we pay attention, we will get a signal, because we are perpetually in communication with each other. So it's for us to be attuned to each other. So we get those signals when they come. And so we can catch it and respond accordingly. So don't feel bad that your spouse is not noisy, but it's a blessing. So you have a quieter house, but you communicate. Write a note. You know, when we go to this, I go back to the marriage relationship, we say, do a love letter. You do a letter to each other, but you're in the same room, yeah, but you stay apart just to do it. That way you communicate effectively and you have a point to dialogue. When you are dialoguing, I'm sure your spouse will talk to you. But when it's just for the talk and just maybe it's not into that mood. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you very much, Charles. I'll take another one here. Is it good for a man to always call his parents to interfere in their marriage? The parents always make the decision in their marriage. Another one here is, I have tried to let my spouse work with me so we can establish our family culture. I suggested we switch off telly and light by 10 p.m. But my spouse always see these simple rules as being against her. What do I do? I'm running out of patience. Can we start with that? I have lots of it here, lots of questions here.
Do I start?
Yeah, either, yeah. You can go ahead.
I'm trying to, this thing we negotiate it is not by, he said, Gloria in her commentary said, don't give instructions. So we negotiate this thing to know who's. But parent involvement in marriage, they say it takes two to tango. Three is a crowd. I think as parents, we need to be fair to our children. Let me first talk as a parent and as a grandfather. We have created our own empire in which we were brought up. We should let our children develop and create their own empire so they too can grow up. I'll tell you a personal story. Many years ago, my wife and I went to the village on one of those weekend visits. And we're driving a Volkswagen Beetle. Of course, way many years before, my mother likes to ride in the front of my car. But now I'm home with my wife. My mother went very gingerly to sit in the front of the seat where she's used to sitting. But my wife and I had very clear understanding. If there's anything that is amiss, that is going to affect our family, in my marriage, I will be the one to deal with my family. But if there's anything that is amiss in our family, that way, from her family that will impact us, she will deal with it. So we wanted the autonomy we love them. They are permanent parts of our lives, but we have to be clear how we want to continue to protect all the parties. The story I was telling you is this. So my mother is sitting in front of the car and my wife is walking out of the house, and from the window you could see my mother in front of the car, and she walked back. Well, I was standing in front of I had not entered the car myself. So what do? I had a challenge. I had to go to my mother. Fortunately, my guardian angel followed me. And shortly after my auntie came, I was just gisting with my mother to get her out of the seat. We have to take charge of our families. Our parents love us so much that you can never do wrong. Your spouse will always be wrong. And whatever they say or do, even if they just to give them money, they were still wrong. The way you gave me the money itself can still create a problem. So we need to be clear to protect our empire. It was made clear to my mother. She had to get out of the seat and go to the back seat. And we told her that's where the owner sits. Let the younger people stay in front now. You have done your own. She can't be queen in two empires. It doesn't happen unless she has. So I think really getting our parents involved in our marriage is a misnomer, but it's something that happens frequently. We need to be strong as adults, loving adults, to be able to tell our parents, I love you, but let me have my quarrel with my spouse. We will manage. Don't come and tell us how to live our home. If we have issues, we go to our parish priest and our marriage sponsors. Because my parents and my wife's parents are emotionally involved with us. They will always take sides. And so this is the way we manage our own then. And I tell you, the rules still work today. We always went to our sponsors, marriage sponsors, where we had issues. We talked to the parish priest. Between the two of them, we had an encyclopedia of what to do. Gloria, maybe you take it from there.
Yeah. Gloria, you answer the second one.
What is the second one again, Charles?
Okay, where do I find that from? But if we don't have that, I have lots, I will read others. Okay, so I'll go to this one. How do you sit down with your partner when you don't have an understanding one? A partner that after having insulted you because you couldn't provide at the moment, later comes around with a forceful apology. And she knows she will have her way because you are the husband who doesn't want wahala. That's one. I read the other one, the first one. I think that one has a vote for it. Okay. My spouse sees my asking our sons to do house chores as turning them into sissies. That's less manly. How do I convince him that this isn't true? Rather, helping out with the housework would make them better children and responsible adults. I've tried to talk with him when he is in great mood, but he still refuses. I am overwhelmed with work and I don't have any house help. Which other way can I handle this?
Okay, so just talking to this last one of getting the children involved, in the house chores. Work, man is made to work. And it is not the type of job that you do that really matters, it is how you do it. So whether it is house chores or whatever chores that is there, you have to form these children. So it is for her to explain further, to the man that, look, our children, if you don't get them prepared now, they will have problems when they also get into their marital home. Whether they are boys or girls, it doesn't matter. You are developing, the virtues of work in every child, because you don't know what the future holds for them. I remember when we were growing up in my house, my younger brother was a very good cook. He cooked better than all of us. My mother would always engage every person. Oh, you do this, you do that, you do that. So everybody grew up knowing how to fend for themselves, knowing how to manage and ensure that the individual, is able to follow up, along the right path. So it is something that needs to be done, something that needs to be addressed. It doesn't matter whether, the man is the one that is, doing it, or it's not the one. The important thing is that the individual needs to know how to do things, and it is so critical. So that is one point. It doesn't matter whether you are a man, a boy, or a girl, but the important thing is that you are able to fetch, for yourselves and for the family, as the case may be, and as you move on. So another thing you need to remember or understand is the background of your husband. That is, where he's coming from. If he's from the family where they were never allowed to do anything, you can understand why he feels that way. But you have to help him to appreciate the fact that being a man and doing justice does not make you less of a man at all. If anything, it makes you to raise a family that is, healthy and proper. I remember my husband used to, and from time to time, he still does. Because if you love me, you have to act it out. And these are practical ways of showing care for your spouse. You cannot be sitting down with your children and your wife is fetching and carrying and slaving. And at the end of the day, you still want a wife. A friend of mine once said, if he needs his wife, he has to make sure he assists the wife. So because it's kind of giving and taking. So Charles, I have addressed that. The other one now, is gone off the roof again. So we take the next question.
You're doing well, Gloria. I have these 3 questions. I will just list them. How do you cope with a spouse that does not appreciate you? That's a good one. Then please throw more light, more or less like bash more those husbands who are being harsh to their spouse and kids. Okay, I have a 3rd one here. In prioritizing expenses, what do you think about first and what gives way? Who goes first?
In prioritizing what?
Expenses. What do you think about first and what gives way?
Okay. Now, coping with a spouse that does not appreciate you. Well, it depends on what the appreciation means. And again, the individual, one thing we always talked about when we go for the married couples relationship is knowing your spouse, understanding their needs. Because if you don't understand your spouse, you don't know how to express appreciation to them. So the first thing, that spouse, should take pain to do is to know how to express gratitude, how to show appreciation. And that comes from knowing your spouse. So it means her spouse doesn't know her. And it's her responsibility or duty to help him appreciate what makes her happy. So that is knowing each other and knowing how to butter each other's bread. That is the appreciation part. Harsh to wife and kids. Well, this happens when the man has no other strategy of management. So it means he doesn't know what to do. So all that he knows how to do is to shout and to scream and to be, and maybe he feels when he shouts like that, he's respected, he's listened to. But really and truly, the sooner it is realized that the more you shout, the less impression you make on the people you are shouting on, the better for the family. So this is to appeal to the senses and the individuals. The child who has done something, it's not to shut them down. Find out first and foremost, why have they done what they did? Maybe if you just take time to understand why they did it, you will know how to handle it and how to talk to the child. And that will help the child to realize that whatever you are saying is true. You are not just chastising them for this chastisement's sake, but because out of love. Because I love you, I do not want you to go, to grow up with this fault uncorrected. You see, like that, you're already appealing to the emotion of the child, and they will be more likely, to listen to you. That is speaking to, to be listened to. And of course, for the wife, as the case is here, you have to realize your wife is your friend, is your lover, is your partner. You don't need to shout. You don't need to shout, because there has to be a difference between the wife and the house help, the wife and the children. And so if we love our spouse the way we love ourselves, we will not shout on them. We have to see them as our other self. So we'll be able to respond to them the way we will respond to ourselves, the way we want, to be treated. So talking about priority, okay, I leave that to Charles.
Hello, Charles.
Oh.
Okay, while you're thinking of that, I also would like to just throw this into the bouquet. What are the key elements for happiness in marriage? Are there any matrices in terms of qualitative or qualitative metrics? And he gives some examples like spouse complementarity, quality family time, scenario planning, etc. That's in addition to the previous ones.
Well, Charles, there's so much to cover. Now, I think we go back to the fundamental. Why are we in marriage? The objective purpose is to love. We're on a mission to love, to seek the good of another, in this case, of my spouse, without expecting anything back. And I'll say it here, though. Every time I say, people frown, oh, how can it be? Love is not about me. Love is about my wife. And I explain. I am the one that, you see, when I grow in love only when I love. It's a virtue. It's a habit, it becomes habitual. Just like my wife cannot grow in love unless she's loving me. So when you use the word 50-50, I know Gloria answered this question earlier, and you put it's sort of anchored on 80-20. No, there's no limit. Love is about doing what makes your spouse happy without expecting anything back. Now, so if you are a true lover, you continue to do it until you get a hang of it, and in seeing them happy, you become happy. Okay, that's a principle. They call it the Christian principle, paraphrasing my words. Now, let's go back and see the points that I think are still, Gloria wants me to define or to talk about how you prioritize expenses. And you have thrown in the element of key elements for happiness in marriage. And I think the other one that was not answered last time had to do with timeout. When do you shut down in the evening? You know, I think if I start with the last one, when do you shut down? You know, we emphasize dialogue in family. Gloria used the word family conference. I like to say a family, a state of the union. Look at your union, how it is functioning. It's a tag team. It's a squad. If you look at the military squad, where you call them scouts or those who go, they protect each other. It's two of them, they die together or they survive together. Always they survive because they agree. So dialogue. What time is best for us to shut down in this house? I know there are often differences in timing. Maybe I used to joke about it because in my house, I'm one of those who go to bed early, but my wife is not likely to go to bed early. But we want to have a just us time. So when the just us time finish, maybe the last 30 minutes of the day before I go to bed, I'm going to go to bed. But I'm going to shut down the lights where I am. Depending on how your house is configured, but if my wife is going to walk in the kitchen, I won't be bothered. So I think you need to agree on it. It's not going to be by decree. Talk about it, agree on what works for you, create a space for the one that wants to go to bed and the one that wants to continue to work. Now, but if it's about today, we are all inundated by flat screen, telephone, television, iPad, or whatever. Now, those are real challenges. You must have a time when you shut down those things. When I say shut down, you don't have to put them off, but at least put them on silent, keep them away that they don't interfere with that your last few minutes of the day that you're going to spend with your spouse. I think it's important. So if that's where the friction is coming, remember that your telephone and all this are foreign intruders who think they have priority over your time and your spouse, the time you want to spend together. No, you are in charge. Don't make somebody else take charge of your family. Second point, you talked about how do you prioritize finance? You know, you say, well, I give the same prescription. It's again, Gloria in her presentation earlier talking about budgeting. In my home, just like I said, the principles that work for business work for the family. And that's what we have tried to study over the years to see how do they work. We find that sitting down to do a budget works so well. Let everybody bring all their this thing, what they desire. Even from my little kid, we used to, now she's a big girl, we used to tell them, okay, what do you want? You may find someone talking about their jersey for Arsenal. Another one is talking about Batman. Those are their priorities. And we put them down now. So like Charles is taking vote for the questions he's passing on to us today. The same thing, we rank it. Where we want to eat. Well, first of all, yeah, we have to eat. We have to have a roof over our head. We want to be able to go to work or school or this. You prioritize it. Well, everybody has a general sense of how much is left. Daddy has already decided, Dad and Mom have already decided, we are going to have this savings so for the raining day. We say, oh, but the money don't finish, so there's no more to put. What happens is that when you prioritize, as you discuss it, you can now post some to the future. If money comes, well, we'll do this. So essentially, it's budgeting. It's a financial plan for the family. You have all the things everybody wants to do, put them down, and look at the family income and deal with it. I know we're going to talk more about that next week or whenever Charles schedules it. Talk about how you manage family finances. The last one, key elements to keep happiness. Well, you are on a mission for happiness. If you love your spouse, he or she will be happy. If they're happy, you are happy. You know, I say, what makes you happy? I am happy when I achieve the goal I've set for myself. If you genuinely are in love and you want to see your spouse happy, if you achieve it, you are happy. So it's a consequence of it. Yes, do I make sacrifice to ensure she's happy? Of course, yes. But it's just like she makes sacrifices to ensure that I'm happy. We know what each other likes. And that's what I think it starts from. It's knowing. It's not just about knowing each other, name and okay. No, knowing each other and feel each other. Know the likes and dislikes of each other. And try to emphasize what they like. Do it for them. They'll be grateful for it. In their gratitude and the joy you see, you are happy. Yes, you may have gone the extra mile and to do it. It's like sometimes I sit down and I look at my wife, when you go to the kitchen, she was not going anywhere. She was sitting next to me there somewhere. But she knows that I'm trying to tell her something. She knows, I feel tired. Can you get me a bottle of water or a cup of tea or something? It's a request. But there are ways of asking. She always tells me, what is the magic word? Please. Thank you very much. What else do you say, Glo? She's laughing. But the point is, you are friends. You talk to each other as friends. It is friendship that brought you together. You are trying to remain friends. So please, don't lose those things that brought you together. Remain friends in your marriage. And the more you solidify your friendship through your interaction, the better for you. So you're able to keep the elements of love. So what does it help you to do? You are friends. You're going to grow friends. Now you have the emotional envelope. Now you really know each other very well. So you can talk to each other. You are husband and wife, guys. So I think, Charles, I hope I have, those are the key elements.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, in fact, your last answer just really blew me off, and because I wasn't thinking of that matrix at all. Now I've been so taken away by all by this session that I've lost track of time. So our time is up actually. So all the other questions will be collated and put in different categories. I see them as some are under themes of work, sexuality, communication, which we'll take in our next session. Next session is taking place same time, same link next week. And also I see some of the questions that will be handled in our online course taking place in June. So we'd like to thank our stellar speakers, Sir Charles and Mrs. Gloria Osezwa, for this amazing session. Next week is also going to be spectacular. We shall call it a day now. So see you same time via the same Zoom link next week, where we shall be answering all these your questions after sharing some life hacks on communications, productivity, and all that. Least I forget, I mentioned about the online course starting on the 5th and 6th that has 3 levels. So I'll send you the link to registration in this online program. I remain sincerely yours, Charles Aigbona, your host. Thank you very much and have a pleasant evening. Remember to log in same time, same link next week, and you get a recording of today's edition. So thank you, Charles and Gloria. See you next week. All of you, audience, see you next week. Bye.
Thank you, Charles. Bye.
Bye. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.